I'm so happy for the Spanish crowd, for the European crowd, that we managed to get G2 in the semi-final after watching Spice and Fnatic drop out in quarters.
Yeah, I agree with you. We did it. All thanks to us.
Yeah, the casting team. Nailed it, boys.
Yes. We'll do it. Don't get distracted by looking at yourself the entire time. You ready? Okay. Welcome to episode number 6 of the pOGcast, the podcast with the greatest name in esports, as currently the only thing we are winning at. I said this exact same thing last time. I think I'll do it in every intro so far. You might have noticed I am here with some very different people than the usual ones we have on the podcast. This is not Andre Giotto, the head coach of Origen, and this is not Smithy, support of Origen. Actually, I'm here with a bunch of GMs and also a bunch of casters. We're at Worlds. It is Chris, PapaSmithy Smith, Jake, Spawn, Tiberi, as well. Otherwise, I could just call you Jake and Chris. Obviously, you are the GM of Order in Australia, and you are the new GM of 100 Thieves. How's it been so far?
Thank you for inviting me to Euphoria. Really nice to meet you.
Budget Euphoria.
Hey, it's something. It's been good. It's been good. It's still early days. A lot of stuff has been remote. Only 1 week on site so far, so kind of seeing everything for the first time.
Did you mess anything up?
It was a good test drive.
Okay.
But heading back to LA tomorrow, I guess, at the time of this recording, to get back stuck into it before coming back for World Finals. So, just looking forward to getting down to it. I got a lot to learn from you two. You're the veterans now.
We are the veterans.
1 year and two?
I've done 2 years now. So obviously, I think being an Australian GM is a little bit different because we have to get our hands slightly more dirty.
Okay. Give me an example.
So for example, like a general day for me would be everything from so I drive about an hour into the gaming house.
Okay.
And then obviously I have teams across 3 different things. So from making sure that players' flights are booked, that they're out of bed, obviously, of the normal stuff.
Yeah.
But then into the real weeds of if you have anything from sponsor meetings need to be set up.
Yeah.
I'm booking lunches and
you're doing all the small things and the bigger things too.
Yeah, absolutely. And then 1 minute I'll be trying to organize a lunch for maybe a sponsor, and then the next time I'm trying to organize a contract for a player in a game that I'm maybe not the expert in. So it's good fun.
Let's ask you a question.
Yeah.
Let's say you could kind of wash away all the dirtier side of the job, all the tasks that might sound menial to other people. Mm-hmm. I bet you actually do derive some pleasure from getting your hands dirty on things.
Oh, absolutely. I think that, especially when and you would know a lot about this, bringing Origen back into LEC, I think when we created Order, all the small things start to be very, very meaningful, and especially when you do them well, and either a sponsor's happy, or one of your players are happy, or someone in management is happy. It really does allow you to get a lot of pleasure out of the job, and I think also kind of keeps things interesting and spicy, because I get kind of bored when I do the same thing over and over again. So it's good to have variety.
It's true. Everything you do actually feels important. One single tweet from the Origen,
that's a lot of things,
or whatever.
A lot of people don't know that the general
really
managers.
Are you guys the social media people?
No, definitely not the social media people. But sometimes come up with some good ideas what could be tweeted.
Seeding ideas.
If that's a positive tweet, then I'm yes.
So I have a question for you, because what I found becoming a GM, even though I'm not in charge of content, because I'm someone that has been on camera before, they always are wow, that player really sucks. Hey Jake, come over here.
Okay.
Tell Tully how to say this line about Riven top lane, or tell Simon how to explain how to flash Kelly or something. I'm trying to write scripts, so there's lots of random stuff going on behind the scenes, I think.
Yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of stuff happening in the job. I think, as you said, it's the smaller things, booking flights. In a lot of ways, is the easiest thing in the world, but it's also one of the most frustrating things sometimes, because you got everything needs to fit in terms of schedule and where you need to be. Then sometimes you need to get people from different places. You also sometimes need to get in contact with the people before you book the flight. That can take forever. Mm-hmm. And suddenly it actually ends up taking more time than it should.
Okay, so
but those are the smaller things.
So what mode of communication do you use on Origen?
We use WhatsApp.
Okay. Very European.
We're using Google Chat, I think, at the moment.
Google Chat?
I didn't know there was Google Chat. It's a relaunch of what they used to be. Because they used to be Google Talk. Now there's Google Chat. So we're on Google Chat.
So we use Twitter DMs. Because no one gets Twitter DMs in OS because we don't use Twitter as our primary platform.
So if
it goes off, it's definitely team business.
So I think the great thing about WhatsApp for us is I can just call the player if he doesn't answer.
Okay.
And there is a chance that then it's not on silent, and then I can get hold of someone. So I think that works really nice. I just really like WhatsApp quite a lot, but I think you can definitely use Slack and you can use Twitter DM. Again, I didn't know about the Google one.
That's just org level. Player level obviously be different.
Right. But I think, honestly, I mean, we're all three sitting here. Chris, you just started as a GM, and we will talk about Worlds later. I know that's why you're here. You don't actually need to hear all about us booking flights and whatnot, but I do think for you, Chris, you're going to enjoy this a lot because you're gonna dip your hands and your toes into a lot of different areas, and working with players, especially, and actually also working with fans when you're representing a brand, is one of the most rewarding things ever. And especially if you have a brand where you're like really proud of kind of the direction it's going. I absolutely love with Origen how we want to push this agenda about taking care of your body, taking care of your mind, like these kind of things. It's actually super interesting and something you get very passionate about. And then also winning is really nice. Losing really sucks. and
terrible.
You're gonna have some terrible weekends and you're gonna have some amazing weekends.
But it's that rush, right, of having skin in the game is the way I call it. When you have a match happening and it's not just who's playing the most beautiful League of Legends or what did I learn from this.
Exactly.
I watched these guys through the week. Or I put this roster together. I invested in it. I booked their flights.
You believe in this one player who's proving everyone wrong, and you're just like, oh yeah, keep going.
Because you always know more than the fans, even more so than just like knowing kind of scrim rumors and stuff. You actually saw that player practice. You watched their scrim sets, and you know what you think is the ceiling, and you get why all the coaches represent their players a certain way, why some are super defensive, why they see things that the fans don't see. Because it's so easy on my end to kind of lose track of the fact that the players practice 80 games, for especially the best of one leagues, right, for the one game they play on stage, and then it's just, that one game is their whole week. It's decided everything when it comes to the public forum. I'm really interested to push into kind of the internal side and really get a feel for that end of things, because you guys have had skin in the game for years now.
You just gotta learn as a caster. You can tweet certain things about a performance on the Rift. I think
no passive aggressive tweets about your players.
Probably avoid that. No? Don't do the why on earth did we pick this? What happened to that? What a terrible draft. Maybe try and avoid that one.
Any other tips on that? Any risky tweets from the Order GM?
You have something you really want to get out now. I can see.
No. I think it's kind of really strange because in OS they allow me to cast my own team.
It's true.
Yeah. So I wouldn't want to cast my own team.
I'd love to cast my own team.
It would feel so weird.
And it's so common in Australian sport, which is what makes it so strange. Like presidents of football clubs in Australia will commentate their own teams on the biggest stages, like AFL Grand Finals and the like.
Do you ever leak anything by accident?
So that's what it comes down to. And then you start mind gaming yourself, because I'll sit there and I'll be like, oh, I know that we really like to play Riven into Pi, right? Like this is just an old example. And then it will be something like, that I can say that on broadcast. That's a global counter. Like, more people do this than we do this. So I should be able to say maybe they'll consider Riven, but I'll be like, I wonder what they're going to pick here. So it does get a little bit interesting at times, certainly.
But I would also be scared if I'm casting another team and they pick something and I go, that's such a good pick. This is really, really strong, by the way. People can kind of be like, I assume then his team is going to do the same?
Yeah, so I think in OS especially, because we're such a smaller community, a lot of people have that already, where nothing is sacred in scrims in Oceania. All of a sudden teams will just be first round banning Twisted Fate against players that have 0 Twisted Fate games that are split. Okay. It's very common. It's just it's very insular and very tiny. But I think what you will learn is that you're going to want to have big opinions about stuff, because as casters, especially color casters, we know everything about the game, obviously. There is no one smarter than us about this, and then
in our own heads.
Yeah, in our own heads. And then you are going to get really, really smart players and even smarter coaching staff, and you're going to see things that you're going to be like, this doesn't make all that much sense to the genius that is Jake. And I've had some rough conversations in the past where I've been proven very wrong about something.
Choose your moments at least.
Okay, pick my battles.
Yeah, don't go in right after the game is lost and.
I would recommend
What
game
happened
day.
there?
Not
What
a
about
great
this and
time
this?
for
Maybe you should have
anything.
hit the shockwave instead of missing them.
Yeah, I think it definitely choose your moments. Definitely choose your moments. So we could talk about being a GM forever. Maybe we will meet here in a year and we will do it. As you might have noticed, and I should probably have said this in the intro, we are in my hotel room right now.
Very spacious. Look at this.
We
huge
don't,
splendor.
Yeah, we don't have this fantastic, amazing Origen wall behind us as we do normally. Again, we are on the road, so I wanted to get this special episode in because I'm here with GMs and casters. And we just finished the last quarterfinals today, so we are recording this Sunday night. We obviously had 4 pretty good quarterfinals.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd have to say, obviously, yesterday, I guess we can start very quickly. Jake, I'm going to challenge you to summarize the IG quarterfinal in like one sentence.
The Shy is better than Sword.
Okay, so that's why IG beat Griffin in one sentence, basically.
Yes.
Okay. What do you think about FPX Fnatic in one sentence?
That was an interesting one.
Is that your sentence?
Yeah, sure, let's go with it.
You must have something about doing B or something.
Fnatic reality surprised me. In terms of what I built that series up to be and what it ended up being was actually pretty divergent, more than I thought.
Yeah, so what I would say is like LPL overperform, Fnatic underperform. Like,
or did LPL perform at the
at
level?
expectation?
You know what the scary thing
Fnatic
is?
performed at expectation.
And that's the thing is like, what if it was just we saw the real FBX and the real Fnatic and there is a huge gap? Like, we couldn't have known that from week 1, and obviously the leagues are in separation all year, but
so it was a 3-1 win obviously to FPX in case you missed it, and sorry if we spoiled it, and obviously IG beat Griffin 3-1 as well. I think the more interesting series is still the Fnatic FPX one to talk about, also for a lot of our European viewers.
Yeah, because I wanted to jump in because I'm super huge fan of G2, right, and how they play the game, and I've spoken about like the fluidity of their map state, and then you see Fnatic in a couple of those best of fives really starting to show a similar style of being able to play. And so I was starting to bump them up a lot because I still have G2 as my favorite to win the whole tournament.
Right.
And so, taking G2 to 5 games twice as Fnatic and showing like these different play styles and the decisiveness, I had really high expectations, and I think they got smashed.
I mean, they did,
FPX.
and that's also why, like, I think we're all pretty high on FPX after that game, and they didn't overperform. They looked like the LPL team. I do think there were some stylistic things where the teams were fairly similar. Like very focused on this like jungle support who can create plays in the early game, especially the junglers there were a lot of focus on, and Tian ended up having way more impact in the game than Broxa had. But we also did have Fnatic sometimes ending up with lanes where it didn't really connect or make sense. Like the TF Garen Yumi thing, where it's like, it's hard to play jungle there. Like you don't have any easy place to go. So I think in the end, Fnatic, I wouldn't say they got outdrafted or anything. I just think FPX matched up very well against them. And I also think Doing B had, of course, an amazing series together with LW.
He also had Rise more than once.
He had Rise. A lot of arguments around... Actually, that's a great question here. Good setup. People after this series instantly were like, why would you not ban Rise? How do you keep giving them Rise? Game 4, he got it in second phase as well. Jake, why didn't they ban Rise?
So, a couple of things. Sometimes a known quantity is better than an unknown quantity.
Okay.
So if you think you have multiple answers that you want to go through for Rise, so they thought they had the Vega, they thought they had Cassiopeia, and you can nearly guarantee if you leave it up, he's going to take it. Whereas if you ban it and he gets counterpicked, you're playing Kled or Talon or Pantheon or some other shit that he's pulled out of the basement.
Probably not Pantheon, but yes.
Yeah, exactly. So I think sometimes a known quantity is good. And then also the fact that Rise does take time to actually get to the point of the game, and Doing B has some champions that just do what he wants to do very early. For example, the Nautilus or the Scion or even the Malphite pick that's come out of nowhere. Like, he wants to be unlocked on the map, and Rise needs kind of an item and a half to do that. So he gives you a window to be able to counterplay, whereas some of these other picks do not.
The Malphite seemed like he unlocked with IP before the game started, because he was reading over the champion skills and like, what do I level here?
We've seen that in Europe.
I do know that he has played a lot of Malphite.
He's played it as well, competitively.
Yeah.
Hey, can't we just roll with the pro view one time and damned him? Come on!
So he also manually casted his first ultimate
I
and
saw.
then changed it to smart cast
Oh,
after that too.
really?
That's why it really looked like he was learning it.
Style points. It's
But
not
I
quite
guess-
g2shop.com, but it's something.
Not quite yet. With the Garen first time, and they played it tough as well, and he was reading the tooltip and stuff. It wasn't good. So I guess to summarize, we're happy with their FPX performance.
Yeah.
We think they're really, really good. Are we still like satisfied with the Worlds run for Fnatic? Like they did get out of a very tough group,
Yeah.
and they had a competitive series at least. What do you think, Chris?
It's one of those things where when I was kind of thinking about predictions, like I predicted Fnatic here because I thought about how the game was likely to play out, what Fnatic was likely to do, which is match kind of these fast movements, kind of show the style they evolved. Because to me, they evolved as a reaction to G2 in terms of like they tried to play old school Fnatic, didn't work, and they started to again have these kind of non-traditional AD carries, play a fast game, super high-paced games multiple times. They played 11 games over the course of half a round robin in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And I just thought there, given that FPX kind of like sputtered on some of the things and not been as clean as they were in China, I just thought, okay, Fnatic can definitely play this style at home and pull it off. For there to be such a gulf in class, I do feel like almost I got a counterfeit, like I should check to see if I got the certificate of authenticity on the Fnatic performance. So I felt let down in a way I didn't anticipate, just because the gulf seemed bigger than I expected coming in, but maybe that's that I just finally got the real FPX and that I don't have the kind of like language or the base of reference. So I watched FPX domestically, and it didn't feel like they were being super amazingly better against Fnatic, and yet it was like a huge gap.
Yeah, it does seem like Fnatic just kind of hit their ceiling from what this lineup can do, and then you can have a whole different podcast about each individual player, and is it due to mechanical skill, is it due to synergy, is it due to whatever, we don't know what's happening behind the scenes, but it felt like Fnatic, they tried to pull out different things in draft. We had focus on Reckless on 80 carries.
And that was a good thing about the series that I will say. That's why I would be content if I was Fnatic, because it was like we gave them this look, they dealt with it. We tried another look,
we even got the pike from Hylissang.
Absolutely. So they had a Cogmore answer to Garen Yumi. Like there was lots of things tried in that. So it's not like we had a bad read on the meta and we did the same thing over and over again and now we're Griffin. It's like, okay, we actually gave a lot of different game plans a really good shot, and maybe they're just a better team on the day.
Exactly. So I think that kind of wraps up the series for us with FPX versus Fnatic. I want to jump to the games we had today. I think starting as a European fan, happy, somewhat proud as well.
Absolutely.
Starting with the SKT versus Splice, I think 3-0, 3-0, 3-0.
I think 99% of people were 3-0.
Exactly. I think we
Except
saw
for Raz.
Raz at 3-1. Yeah.
He's the 1%.
We don't know why.
In most conversations.
Did he ever say why he
No.
had 3-1? So we have no clue. He just put 3-1. We saw the Korean broadcast. It were like 7 people, 3-0 SKT.
Do you know what I like to think? So Raz was the coach of DEU. Not many people would know that. And I just liked it. And that's the organization that became Splice. And he was just like, you know what? My boy Kobe.
Give him one.
Give him one for Kobe. That's
and he
what
got
I like.
one, But I think, coming in, we were looking at SKT, they won their group, tough group as well with Fnatic and RNG. And I think we looked at just like lane for lane, it just felt like that advantages everywhere. And we also still trust, even though we haven't actually seen, necessarily SKT play for late game, we still know they can be amazing team fighters. So it just feels like across the board, we just believe that this team will just run over Splice, but they didn't.
Isn't it amazing though that if the series ended as a best of 3, it would have been pretty damning, right? It would have been it's what we expected.
They're better.
2-0, it's over. And then you think of potential kind of reasons for the way it went it did, right? Just like when I do a VOD review and I'm like, this player objectively made a wrong decision from the broadcast view. What information did he have? Fog of war, other things. And I look at this series and I'm like, what if 2-0, 2-0 is pretty straightforward. The coach says, Mata gets a game now because we want to give him a game at Worlds, or it's in his contract that he'll play at Worlds. Don't know any realities there, but these things exist. And then maybe some of the players agree with that, maybe some of the players don't. You lose the game, and then you're just not really even there for the 4th game, but eventually you get over the line, you win 3-1, and everyone's like, SKT, they didn't meet expectation. Maybe they're not that good. All stemming from one choice after the series was kind of killed. Like, no one was gonna say reverse sweep.
But they weren't like super
till they got
convincing the
divided.
first two games.
So game
right?
one was
I know you wanted
real
to be,
back and
but-
forth.
I'm not saying I'm like super like they were 9 out of 10, but like
Right.
I never thought Spice was winning game 1 and 2.
Kobe had a 3,000 gold lead.
I did say in
Over
game 1
Teddy.
at some point, Spice will
You
win
said a
this.
lot of things
I did
in
say
the
that.
cast around.
I did as well. So obviously casting the games, a couple of things that I was really impressed with off the bat. So first thing, North Skurin had like his best game,
Right.
I think, maybe a career-defining game. Don't want to call it too early, but I actually thought like he had multiple really great performances. And then the ability for Humanoid to match Faker and actually minimized his unforced errors that he had, like,
Yeah, I agree.
leading isolated deaths at one point in this tournament. And then to come up clutch, like that flash scatter the weak into the portal play that was able to secure the dragon fight. They had like a couple of people that were, I think, playing like unreal League of Legends.
I think the standout still is Cersei. For early game impact, I think he actually had early game impact that allowed Splice to be even, maybe even slightly ahead in some of the early games. And of course, he was a big factor in the game they won with Rek'Sai.
Did you see Clid's stats though? Clid was a part of 90% of SKT's kills.
But
That's
he's
always
like,
his stats.
That's scary.
He's like one of the only junglers where we can praise the other jungler without him actually looking bad. He still looked amazing.
No, so what
despite
I'm saying,
the other jungler being really
I'm saying
good.
that's scary for SKT.
Oh,
You
you
don't
mean
want
like
your
because
jungler to have to
they're
be a part of
it's-
90% of players?
It's kind of been like that all split.
90%
all
of
year.
players?
It's like super high. He has very high kill, but especially as if it's always Clid and X or just Clid or no players happening. And remember the LCK. It's one of those things where there's often only 4 kills in the game at 15 minutes, and he's involved in all of them because everyone else is farming the entire time. So I know that sounds damning, but it literally has been how they've been playing, and that's why I feel like every pregame was saying the same thing of like, they should stop Clid, or like they should have a plan for Clid.
It is
because
actually
literally, that's the way you win.
Yeah.
If he's doing nothing, they're probably losing.
But how do you stop him?
I mean, the best way to stop
Get
the
him to pick
jungler.
Scanner?
I learned from Peanut. You battle ward. You get in there. You have a
So
skirmishing
pushing
advantage. You
lanes
push him
early,
into a
they
box.
can,
Yeah.
and then contest the enemy jungler basically.
You think of like the best version of FBX, or just in general the FBX versus SKT matchup. If Doinby and Tiana all over Clid, they're winning every game, 100%.
that would probably be the two best junglers in the world fighting each other.
Yeah.
Absolutely at this
Yeah.
point.
Right now, that could be insane.
That could be a final.
Yeah, 100%. I think let's try and like summarize the series and let's say what did SKT do well in this series, because they did still win 3-1.
Khan played really well again,
Yes.
I think. Actually had,
On a lot of stuff.
yeah, he blind picked Fiora, had a really great patch up into Poppy, then he took the Quinn again and went phase rush and just shot
Yeah.
people a lot
Okay.
with a P shooter. So I think he played really well. And then I think the fact that we saw Marta and then we saw how Teddy played with effort again made me respect effort a lot more than maybe what I had respected effort coming into the tournament as well. I think effort is a better support than I had given him credit for.
He definitely had like an international debutante ball best of 5 here, where it was like, oh, okay, this is what he's all about. The flash play,
Yeah.
where he showed a lot of engagement there. He's usually a laning support, like it's very much Teddy and effort rather than Mikyu as like the lowest proximity to perks. He's much more of a roaming support.
Right.
But he's developing that side of his game and his confidence. He's now 19, maybe getting to 20 soon, so he's still on the younger ebb.
And that gives you some swagger. When
He-
you
oh,
win
for
3
sure.
games
It
and
was
Marta
swag.
wins 0, like,
Yeah, that's true, that's
feeling
true.
pretty
Stay
good.
on the bench.
He walks off there
MVP
going,
of
you,
Worlds.
you keep sitting there.
Yeah.
You know, I got this, don't
The
worry.
fundamentals side, like the weird thing is that there was some tripping, you know, in especially mid game.
There was a lot of tripping.
Oh,
I
SKT.
felt like.
But late game, like especially like the games that were kind of in the air and then killed in 4 minutes, those were the SKT looks I did like, where they could actually close out in kind of methodical but like very decisive fashion.
Do you know the other one thing I really liked? When the game was in the balance, it was Faker flashing over the wall and like picking up the kill to stop anyone coming into that Baron pit. I think that it takes a special kind of
really
player
good at balance.
that even when
Right.
you're having a terrible series, like I thought Faker was, like the ability to still pull the trigger on plays and like go for stuff, I find that kind of thing's impressive and kind of uplifting.
So last point on SKT, because they are obviously moving on to the semi-final. I think it's hard for the first time ever to quickly explain how SKT like plays, like what the greatest strength of SKT is now. Because always in the past we'd be like, yeah, you know, like fundamentally they were just the best. The discipline was amazing. Team fighting. They always said that. What is it now that we find to be the greatest strength of this
CJ
SKT?
Blaze from like 2014 or whatever it was. When CJ used to win every lane and then run into your jungle, and you're like, what the heck is going on?
But didn't we just establish they don't win every lane because they do play, they need jungler?
They do play to win lanes though, because this game they were drafting Draven Thresh and Lucian top into GG
That's
at
true.
the same
That is
time.
trying to win everywhere.
That is just trying to win all the things.
I don't think they kill you, but they certainly shove in and like just have prio everywhere on the map and skill check you at every point. Like think about some of the early games where Khan is literally flashing forward onto a Poppy with zero vision on a jungler. That does not happen in Korean League of Legends. They killed him for it, thank goodness. Maybe restored some balance, but like that is the kind of style that I'm now expecting from this SKT lineup.
And just to finish off the idea of style, I'm thinking back to games and like, how many team fights are there that ebb what we thought of traditionally as team fights, right? Yeah. You think of big shock waves and like long fights. We saw a Nazir and it felt like almost out of place, like it was from a different game.
Typically one guy gets caught out initially and then something starts.
And it's a lot of like, you watch the screen and like even as a caster you're watching like someone's blowing up in 3 different quadrants of the screen, and you're like, which one of these was the most important? I'm trying to work it out. But it's just so striking that those big calls you remember, like fake a shockwave, find them all, and multiple re-engages into like a war. It feels so much more like the game starts with 2v2 skirmishes and then has 3v3 and 2v2 and a 1v1 at the same time at points, rather than like this kind of war simulator that League was in the past.
So can we summarize greatest strength?
Of SKT?
Yes. Mechanical skill.
I think
greatest jungler.
Mid to late fundamentals to me is
mid to late fundamentals.
They sometimes try to trip in the early to mid, but I think once the game is where they want it, they know how to checklist it out.
I would say carries in every lane.
Yeah, that's what I would say.
Funny enough, we can actually say the same thing for G2. And G2 were actually able to use every single lane to carry when they beat Down One Gaming 3-1 as the last series we had here. Because we legitimately had every single lane at some point being the one they wanted to focus on. Maybe with the one exception, they didn't have to gank mid, because Caps just kind of won mid on his own.
Which is a story in
Which is a story in itself, and then use that to kind of move, everywhere else on the map. So I guess like G2 Esports, great series so far. Any quick takeaways from you?
Yeah, I think my biggest takeaway was that I think Doinby having shown up in Europe has somehow influenced a couple of mid laners in particular.
Okay.
Caps has certainly taken some inspiration for him, and I think Chovy maybe took a little bit too much inspiration from him as well. The reason I love watching G2, and I think the reason a lot of people love watching G2, is because when they have made their play, you go, that makes a lot of sense. But their ability to do it so early. Yeah. Like, it's not so like this wave is crashing in 5 seconds. It's like, this wave will crash in like 2 waves time because I'm stacking it correctly. So if you get mid lane under control and then Yankos comes into Raptor camp and escorts Caps towards the top side of the map, we will have an unanswerable play. And they just identify it so early in the piece.
I asked Mithy in the last episode we did that came out Friday. You guys should actually go rewatch it, even though it's now old news, because a lot of the predictions and reasoning for why X Team would beat the other one actually ended up fitting very nicely. So it's a credit to Andre and Mithy there. But I asked him specifically, like, does the game require more mechanics now than ever? And he was like, yes, but it also requires better decision making than ever. And
very quick
decision making, because like you mechanically need to be at the top of your game, but you also need to know that the champion in front of you most likely can close the gap with 1 or 2 dashes and then land a stun and then like almost one shot you. So you can't actually think about too many things. And what G2 is able to do is like, okay, so I get a good TP back to mid, so I get a push. Wonder's building wave top. Good, let's quick make a call. I'm going to go top. You're going to zone him off. Then Wonder has TP. Then he can now use it bot. And like the whole thing is just synced together within like 30 seconds. Yeah. And then the moment the play is over, they're already onto the next play. And I think that's amazing.
You want to know the biggest crazy bit about it? They're like talking about pizza or some shit at the same time.
Oh,
like, I know. They're literally not even discussing any of what we've just said.
When I think of like an analogy to how G2 play, have either of you seen the movie Birdman? So Birdman was a really popular movie a few years ago with Michael Keaton playing like, because he was one of the original actors that played Batman in the old Batman movies, and he's playing like he's effectively like a retired Batman
Okay.
stepping into a role. Now, the reason why that movie was so hard to watch, I watched it with Pastry Time many years ago now, is that it's all shot basically in one take. Not in one take, but it's basically shot with no scene breaks. Like, it's all flowing, and there's no time to breathe. It's not something happens, and then, you teleport to another part of the world, and there's that moment for you to collect your thoughts and breathe. It's always like going down a corridor and then turning, and there was no time to breathe, and it was so intense to watch because there was never really any time for you to readjust yourself or sit back or breathe. And that's how G2 play, and that must be what it's like to play against G2, because at all moments things are happening and little fires everywhere, little skill checks are happening, and you're never like, okay, let's put down our wards and all full reset, because you know that if you're full resetting, they're either taking a Baron or absolutely screwing you over.
Well, that's because they also reset really quickly. So I used to make my laners watch G2 laners because they always, when they want to reset, they always walk back a very safe distance, and their first reset gets off nearly every single time, and that allows them to get onto the map with so much tempo or whatever you want to call it, so much more additional time to be able to make their play, right? So
you can use tempo here.
Use
it's
tempo.
a safe space.
Safe space for tempo.
Okay, yeah. So, and what I mean by that is and you'll see it in their games. They will disappear 3 people off Fog of War, and they'll realize you've been playing around bottom jungle or something. They'll want to shift you towards top. They'll just run into your topside jungle, dump all your things. Before you even realize they've done it, you're like, we need to try and regain control of this. We don't have the optimal ward, so we either have to take a base, as you mentioned, and reset up, or we just have to run in and try and fight them. And now the impressive thing is, that's a really intelligent move. And then they're also some of the best skirmishers available. And that's why everyone all of a sudden was so excited about Griffin. Because Griffin beat them at that kind of gameplay.
Beating is almost an understatement. They annihilated.
2 games in a row.
Yeah, and you could see G2 were this is our top lane shift, and then immediately Lee Sin flash kick out of the brush, you're dead. Support's already here. And I just think
that's why we thought more from Griffin. You know? We expected more from this team.
But that's why young League of Legends people should watch G2 play, because they do everyone will look at the end step and be look how flashy that is. And then, you always used to say this to me, go back 45 seconds before it happened, and then you can actually see why it happened.
I felt the most rewarded when I did the VOD reviews of G2, because I know what everyone took away from a G2 game. It was that sick outplay, or how much bravado a player showed at a different moment, but it was things like their smart resets and the fact that they always had the control wards to make the plays they wanted and always exhausted you, and also that they would always push into areas and then be watching to see, wait, they do have wards here, I can tell by how they're pathing. They do a lot of really smart things like that, and it's their fundamentals that I think allow them to it's those strong fundamentals that allow you to break the game in terms of how we think of is correct or safe. And that's the reason why they're so good.
Now, that doesn't mean they're perfect. Because I did see a couple of things in G2's games that I would think, a team like IG would watch how Wonder mucked up his wave a couple of times or took a bad trade, and they were if you do that against the Shy, he probably kills you, and it's probably a 40 CS advantage for the Shy, right? So I think that...
And IG did do that at MSI.
Absolutely.
Against them.
So I do think that, there is areas that you can still look to attack this lineup, but it's not like they play a game without risk, and they know that that is going to happen.
Perfect League of Legends, it's dead.
Yeah.
And you can even argue in the past when you had the super slow, you just kind of choke people out style, if that was perfect League of Legends or not. It was definitely less mistakes. But also now you are playing a lot more aggressive. You are playing a lot more aggressive matchups. Where if you do make a mistake, you might get all in and die.
And it also always took 2 to tango. I say this all the time about the LCK, but you can play a slower game if people are willing to cede objectives to you and lose the minimum every time. But the thing is now is that teams like G2, they'll fight from a deficit. IG will fight without 3 ultimates because they threw it into a Garen top lane for no particular reason and then still beat you at a Rift Herald.
I just want to move on to Damwon real quick.
Okay.
I think they do deserve, a mention. Obviously, very few people, at least from the broadcast, predicted them to win against G2, but I still think we were all very happy with the performance from groups. Play-ins into groups, getting first place against Team Liquid and against IG, so not, again, an easy group for them. Chris, did you expect more?
No, I'm not disappointed at all.
Oh, you got exactly what you expect.
Yeah, and I, if anything, underrated them a bit. I thought their second round robin group day was really strong. I didn't even predict them to get out of the group. And so they came into this series. I think some of their players showed their straps. They played a lot of the champions they usually play. I think a lot of people ascribed things onto Damwon because of what they saw in Iceland. But they're like, wow, Nuguri, like, he's such a great player. He's a complete player. He's a top 5 player in the world. And I'm like, definitely. No, like, he's a really good aggressive laner. But, like, there's no, like, oh, he's got all the smarts behind it and the greatest TP player in the world. Like, no, like, he's just a really good laner. And I think because they came from the region of Korea and they do have very strong strengths in terms of, like, their attributes. Like, if they're a FIFA player, like, they're getting a lot of high 90s in certain things. You kind of put all those things together and you're like, aha, a finished product. And I was like, no, like, this team in spring season had no idea about macro, no idea how to play the map. Flame had to come in and be like, guys, I beat him with a whip. And like, you gotta get smarter about the game. They had no idea. Like, they would get leads and their 20 to like 35, 40 minutes was like abysmal. And they got way better in summer. And it was, what I like about them is it's very much, that Griffin felt like they had cheat codes, right? Like, rookie team, they almost won LSK in their first split, and you're like, this shouldn't be possible.
Everything
you
just
were
worked,
playing challengers. How can you just beat everyone? And that was like a slow burn, but they were so good so quickly. With Damwon, it was like, of course you're not good at this macro. Like, you didn't get challenged in terms of, in academy challenges. You're just rolling everyone. And they got better. And somebody like, oh, okay, like, I can see you building. Big brain Coach Kim. Like, all that made sense. And so when I see them play this series and where G2 just outmatches them and is just a bit smarter than them and feeds off bad tendencies of Nuguri, for example, I think most people will look at now that, oh, he's overhyped and overrated. And it's like, no, like, in some ways he was fairly rated and in some ways you misjudged him is kind of how I look at it. I think they walk away and they've got a blueprint for something. They clearly need a change somewhere. Like, you think of like, oh, a really experienced support maybe, or a change in the 80 carry role.
Or a deft 80 carry or something.
And then you're like, is that now the thing where, like, Deft would want some jungle attention, then Nuguri's going to just be super duper running it down in top side. It's like, I don't know if that's... Because people, it's so easy, right? To like, a skill upgrade. Now the team is better. I'm like, that does not always make a team better.
Time will make this team better.
Agreed.
So I think that what people would not have taken away from this, and what I saw personally, when we were in Verdi and they're playing against IG, people were screaming for Damwon. They had the crowd behind them. Now they've gone into a best of 5 against a tournament favourite in a hostile environment.
Oh yeah, it was very G2 favourite.
Yeah, and as a young kid, call it what it is, you know, like some of these players, sub 20 years old.
They're in Spain. That's a long way away from Seoul, South Korea.
A long way from home.
Yep.
They've been over here for a month. Like, this
Tired,
is when, like, trust me, like, homesickness starting to kick in. Like, you know it's all on the line. And they're playing against who I consider right now the best team in the world. So, like, let's actually set the stage of what they're up against. You can't call that an underperformance.
No.
They had brilliant moments during that season, and their hands would have been, like, absolutely going
And
wild.
some of their losses they even had, like, they didn't roll over.
No.
I mean, maybe the last game, but, like, there was definitely, like, game 2 and stuff where you're like, wow, okay. Like, they're fighting back. A 6K gold lead's now a 2K gold lead much later.
I think the biggest disappointment I had was actually towards the coach, Coach Kim. I felt like in draft, I don't think he analyzed properly what is our strength and what is the way, like, why are we losing to G2 right now? Like, his bot lane didn't just lose 2v2. They lost 2v4 in some of the games. He puts his superstar mid laner, I'm going to call him a superstar mid laner.
Sure, Showmaker's great.
On Kale, and then he's on Corki. Picks where he cannot contest the wave early. And we've seen in all 3 quarterfinals before this that mid-priority into roaming is now pretty much the meta around mid lane. So I really feel like some of the players or the team ended up looking worse than they should because they got kind of sacrificed in draft. Not a lot of respect for how G2 were actually beating them in the early game. Perks didn't get 10 kills on Kaiser on his own. That was team play, and that was abusing the fact that they couldn't answer in the early game. So I'm disappointed there personally, but I do think the players did, they played as expected.
I think, honestly, you look at this team, like, if you did a draft analysis of their tendencies domestically, like, this team drafts comps that any other team in the world just shouldn't bother with, because they drafted a lot of Karma, Jace, solo lanes, with, like, a poke support, and then, like, a Talia jungle, and you're like, how does this team ever start a fight? Very often they had no initiation, or maybe just barrel on Alistair to tank the 2v2 even worse to get an initiator, and it's they really want a lot from this player, just slammed that player over there, or just flashy in the moment kind of outplays like their famous Baron steal on the second round robin. Like they can be clutch, don't get me wrong, but they just didn't play League of Legends.
They were not set up to be clutch.
They didn't play your dad's League of Legends, the book League of Legends. They played a style that worked for them, and I think Coach Kim just looked at it and was like, if we put Noguri on Ornn and then play a standard teamfight comp, we're probably going to lose because we do have deficiencies in our game. So let's just play to our tendencies and make it work.
That's why I wanted the playmakers in the solo lanes.
And that's where I was kind of like you, because I will take... This is why I was really disappointed in Griffin. Because I looked at Griffin and I was like, just give Chovy Aurelia one game. Like, just show me whether... Like, because Rookie wasn't playing the best series of his life. Just show me whether he can do it. And I was kind of the same thing with Showmaker. I was like, just do something that allows him to play a Kiana game or an Aurelia game, or just something that he is able to, like, look for those...
There's a Kali out. It's banned.
Yeah, it was banned every single game, right? So you can't get that one. But I do agree with you. Maybe there was something more there, but I think that my experience with, like, players like that is they will reach for comfort as well. And I mean, having been a part of drafts in the past, like most of the time it's players getting asked what they want in that particular scenario. So a lot of it is on the coach, but I think a lot of it is also on these young players that, once again, we're playing against a very informed and good G2.
It was definitely tough for them. I think G2 showed up as the better team, fully deserved to move on. We've already gone fairly long in this podcast. It was supposed to be about 30 minutes. I say that about every episode as well, and then it ends up being like 50 minutes. I have two things I want to kind of cover here at the end. One of them will be semifinals. Quickly, some quick thoughts and predictions.
First thoughts,
and then quick predictions. And then I just want to talk about, Dade Award and front runner for MVP at Worlds, if we have any already. But let's start just with semifinals real quick. FPX versus IG. What do you got?
So IG, the only team that beat FPX domestically, however, did not do so convincingly, and I do not think that any LPL team has a recipe to beat this team from what I have seen domestically in their play.
And the scariest thing to me is I think of FPX almost like, I come from the really old school Chinese League of Legends casting when WE were the dominant world and Chinese team, and then OMG developed a style that countered this WE team, and then they took over. And OMG never actually reached those heights internationally, right? But they became dominant in China, so they could beat the established team in China. I actually look at FPX as like an international challenger that is of that same kind of... I don't think any Chinese team can beat FPX, and then I think FPX have finally now shown, wow, internationally we can also play that meta. So I look at it and I'm like, FPX was to me the best of the four teams in terms of just their side, so they should win.
The way IG used to beat Doinby's teams is by slamming Doinby. And Doinby is playing better than Rookie at this tournament. So that is going to be very hard to
I do want to see him without the Rise, at least, if you just judge from quarterfinals.
Oh, he'll find something else.
Yeah, I'm sure he has... I know he has like 10 million picks, but there are some solo lane concerns, like especially top, where obviously the Shy will have an advantage.
Oh, yeah.
But I do think FPX is actually playing the exact style that you should be playing at Worlds right now. Very good jungle supports who can engage, who are actually smart at snowballing leads for their carries, and then they have mechanically good carries, at least in mid and bot, that can actually win you the game. Gimgoon, he's gonna be on low resource, do not feed the Shy.
Give him the Ornn, baby.
Something like that.
Oh, and we saw Ornn.
If he can hold on, then that should be it. So we got FPX as one. I'm also currently on FPX. Everything can change in 5 days.
Yeah, of course.
But that's where we're at now. G2 versus SKT. First thoughts for that one.
I think SKT, I kind of gave them a potential defense in terms of what could have happened in game 3 and 4. But obviously that's just a potential, just a random throw out there to how dynamics can go. I think if you want to just cut through the BS, they looked pretty unconvincing today. We know what they're capable of, but we also know what G2 versus SKT looks like, because it's not that different from what happened at MSI. You could argue, yes, SKT have gotten faster again since then, and they're trying to play a style that would contend with G2, but G2 is G2. So I actually think that G2 have a mental warfare advantage here, because you start hovering Pyke, you start looking for kind of new picks. I think there's going to be one-offs here from G2 that are very much... This will just kind of blow up a game against SKT, almost in the same way that they didn't really return to Pyke wholesale. The nerfs came, obviously, for the champion as well, but a lot of other teams tried to pick up Pyke, And it's like, well, maybe this solo lane pike's not the thing. It's what the pick represents that's more important.
Yeah, I think I kind of disagree because coming into MSI, I thought Wanda was maybe one of the best players in the world.
I called him best Western player in spring.
Yeah.
I think Khan right now is having a better tournament than Wanda, whereas that definitely was not the case. And then I thought that Perks and Mickey were going to be the weakness of G2 at MSI, and they were 100% the strength, and maybe now are the best bottom lane in the world. Right? So I think that this is a very different matchup from MSI. I think the way this game will be won or lost is can Wanda hold on versus, how do I say this politely? Can Faker control caps? Like, is
he
that
can't. I can tell you already he won't.
Yeah, so
he will also be roaming a lot, so it's about
but
who
he
actually does
didn't
it
at
effectively.
MSI. He stayed at home on
He
his
roams
ear
a lot more
and
now.
just-
Yeah, exactly. Like
So
I
he
think
tries.
they're both gonna try and do the same.
Yep, so Faker needs to play much better than he did today, and Wanda needs to play much better than he did today.
Okay. Do you have anyone as a favorite in this, or is it like the 5-game 3-2?
No, G2 is winning the whole thing. Like I think G2.
The whole thing. You're calling it now. They're winning worlds.
I called it. I called it.
Sorry, I had you on mute normally. So
Yeah, I called G2 winning worlds before play-ins even started. I said this is the first year I would not take the field. If you did like top 3 contender, like you get G2, FPX, SKT, or everyone else in the tournament, I said I would take G2.
Okay. Chris, you agree?
Yeah, I mean, we said it on broadcast. I'm kind of a G2 3-2 in that I do think this is actually going to go 5 games. So it's not necessarily I'm a 51-49 G2. I'm kind of like 60-40.
Okay.
But I think a 3-2 is... Even though that's actually the math there, I do think 3-2 is going to be full 5 games.
So I always get flamed for saying this, but if you think they're going to win, they can win 3-2 or 3-0. So I always just like to be like, even if I think it's close, 3-0. Three close games,
3-0
but they win all of them.
3-2.
Yeah.
I'm on a 3-1 G2 as well. Also, I'm still waiting for some of the new picks. They're always teasing them.
What, like Oriana bottom lane?
That one wasn't exciting enough. I need aggressive picks, not the slower picks. But I think we're all very high on G2. So, lastly, do you have anything?
I think the
points?
bottom lane is kind of where I think the unique things are most likely to come that will rattle Teddy. Because I think Teddy's been fine this tournament. I think in general, internationally, he's been fine.
You haven't noticed him much. I gotta say that.
He hasn't popped off like some people kind of predicted. He hasn't been instantly adept or instantly some of those other Korean AD carries that have captured imagination. And, you know, he knows his AD carry matchups so well. And he plays some of the mages as well, but not to the same level as other people. You can just see Perks rattling him with some sort of out-of-the-box pick. And then I'm getting kind of bad memories of his Varus TPing onto a dead turret in MSI.
Oh, yes.
And those moments, like, if it gets to the 4th and 5th game, that's where the mental warfare edge will really kick in.
Okay. I mean, I think it's going to be an absolutely insane series. I think actually both semifinals, just like we had a lot of really awesome quarterfinals. Even the 3-1s that were a little bit one-sided, it never felt like they were super clean, just like stomps. There were always a lot of fighting back. So I think we had a very nice spot in terms of the kind of state of the game. But last topic. Dade Award, current front runner for MVP. Do we have any? Because I thought about Dade Award. I'm like, and for people who don't know,
very hyped
basically
player.
It's like a player who was really hyped coming into Worlds, who then ended up super underperforming. Obviously, comes from Summoning Insights, Summoning Insight like many years ago. With Monty kind of introducing that, and Dade won it. Funny enough, the old mid laner from
2013 Worlds, Samsung White, just doing nothing.
When they just
Ozone.
it was Ozone.
Ozone.
When they crashed out of groups back then.
He had a bad Tony.
Lost to Gambit in a famous game. And
very
knocked out.
famously won it in 2015.
Do we have any name? Was there anyone who got hyped up but then didn't perform? I think
some people will probably say Nogari. I think that's someone.
I don't agree with it. Has to 100% be here.
Who?
Like Jensen has to have won the Dade Award this year.
I don't think anyone had him.
Was he hyped up?
He wasn't even on the top 20.
He was supposed to be the person that took TL finally out of group stages of a tournament, and he got blasted every single game.
He definitely had a tough run, but
I didn't see it that.
Oh,
he wasn't hyped enough. But I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying.
That was.
He should have been way better than he was, but I don't think anyone had him top 20. You know.
Oh yeah, I don't think so. Maybe he's only 24, but he performed 80th nearly. Like there is still a big gap between.
Not getting any Christmas cards from Jensen. I see over here.
Okay.
Okay, so if you're saying
so Order is not signing Jensen this off, is what you're saying. Okay.
I mean, if you want to have the conversation, give me the ball.
I get it now.
Okay, so if you want to have a conversation about top 8 teams then, is that what you're trying to say?
Well, I guess if we don't feel like there's one name that stands up for the entire tournament, we could look at just the quarterfinals specifically. Nogari would be one.
Yep.
Showmaker stuck on scaling picks, not having any impact, honestly, in that series. But that's 2 members from the same team as well.
I always hate the ones
it's
with
going to be
Nogari.
Jackie Love, actually. Do you
Yeah,
know what? I'll
that's,
call
you know,
Jackie Love
that's
Friday
fair.
Award so
Yeah.
far. Because people said that Jackie Love was the most consistent AD carry coming out of the LPL, which I just straight up disagreed with anyway. So like, but I won't challenge the logic. And then he was, I think, in both top 20 lists.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Super high. I would have had him super high if I did this as well.
And he has been definitely, in my eyes, the weak link of IG so far this tournament.
That's fair.
So we can establish there's no full tournament Dade Award right now.
No,
but
I'm
there's
giving
some
it to him the
individual
whole
players.
tournament.
Oh, you're giving it to Jaguar for
So
the whole
far.
tournament.
If you
So
won't
far.
give me Jensen...
Imagine if he wins the whole thing and you're like, Dade Award.
Hey, I think he'll be fine with it. He'll
Yeah,
be crying
I think
into
he'll be okay
Summoners
with
Cup number 2.
Okay, what about the positive one? Like MVP front runners for the entire tournament.
Before
so
this
far.
week, it probably would have been Faker, right? But he had a really kind of meager
Okay.
result. So I think he would have been one of the top contenders. But I think he's fallen away there.
People bring up perks for
So
sure.
there are 4 of them,
Perks?
I think. That's one of them. Keep guessing. Who else you got?
I mean, the shy will be
Doing
up
big,
there.
Yep. Doing B's the
Doing
other
B will
one.
be up
And then
there.
there's one from
Tian.
SKT as well.
I think Tian also deserves it.
Nah, so I
Would
Clid.
it be a jungler?
Yeah.
Clid, obviously.
Clid, yeah. So I think they're whoever wins the tournament, I think if FunPlus win, Doinby will be MVP. I think if G2 win, Perks will be MVP. I think that if IG win, it's got to be the Shy. He's the only person that's allowed to play KO, by the way. I used to have an Ezreal list in the LPL that was pretty famous.
Yeah.
There is a KO list, and it's just one name, and it's the Shy, and everyone else stopped playing the champion.
I'll dissent in that I think Tian should be on a top 5.
Okay.
I think he's been really,
Okay.
really
So
strong.
he's just at number 5, and we have the other 4 above.
I actually probably have him closer to my 1 because I think he's been
Ooh,
super
okay.
good.
Doinby?
It's so hard to
Doing big
remember
groups was like
decouple those
okay,
things.
but not that insane. Doing big Rise against Fnatic, whew.
Doinby
Perfection.
group was better
Perfection.
than you remember it. He had 2 clangers. And then he also had 2 superstar games. That Renekton
And then he
game.
had 2 okay games. So that feels like
Yeah, alright.
an okay group.
Where does it
force.
begin and where does it end with a jungle and mid is so hard. I'll say that the amount he was better than Broxa in the quarterfinal was like a gulf, a chasm. It was massive.
Can I end on that? I felt so bad for Broxa. Broxa is actually maybe my favorite League of Legends, as a fan, my favorite League of Legends player. I'm going to say nearly in the world. To watch your favorite player get unfortunately outplayed in that regard, that hit me real deep. That was an emotional moment for
So
me.
it's a bit of a sad ending. Can we get like a positive ending?
A pog ending.
A pog
Yeah,
ending?
like-
Nice, yeah, I like that.
Give me something great here at the end.
LPL is insanely good at League of Legends.
Very
like for
true.
anyone that was like, this is a flash in the pan, they've been this way since 2015. People, you gotta trust me
Alright.
on it. But the LPL right now, they play I think the most exciting.
That's positive.
brand.
Korea finally won a best of 5 at an international event. It took 1.5 years. But we
Man.
did it. We just needed Splice for
Imagine trying to
SKT,
say
the
that
1v8 seeds
in the
kind of
past.
scenario. Hey, it's 2019, baby. We got 3 GMs here. We were casters back then too.
It's true. It is true.
What do you got positive, man?
SKT versus G2 rivalry.
Oh.
Getting another one.
I know.
Another one. Super important game. Another semifinal. Honestly, I think that's amazing, and I'm so happy for the Spanish crowd, for the European crowd, that we managed to get G2 in the semifinal after watching Spice and Fnatic drop out in quarters.
Yeah, I agree with you. We did it. All thanks to us.
Yeah,
We
the
did it.
casting team.
We
We
did it.
nailed it, boys.
Yes, thank you for watching the podcast episode 6, not featuring Origen members.
You've done 6 of these?
We've done 6 of these. Well, now we've done 6.
Okay.
But you guys have watched all the other 5. I know
Definitely.
it's cut.